Everybody knows the 90s gave us some legendary albums. Nirvana's Nevermind, Radiohead's OK Computer, Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill. But not every great record from that decade got the attention it deserved. So today we're looking at 5 albums from the 90s which I think are criminally underrated. It doesn't mean they weren't successful. Some of these were very, very successful, but I don't think they've received the attention or the accolades that they truly deserve. And they definitely deserve a lot more love. And remember, this is just part 1. There's probably going to be a few of these. Number 1, Third Eye Blind, their debut album. So when you think of Third Eye Blind, you probably think of Semi-Charmed Kind of Life. You've probably heard it a million times on the radio. You probably hear it in the supermarket. Insanely catchy, radio dominating. But their debut album was way more than just that one song. Their debut album was packed with razor sharp hooks and probably surprisingly some really dark subject matter. Songs like Jumper and How's It Gonna Be deal with isolation and loss. And then you get Motorcycle Drive-By, which is actually probably my personal favourite. I have a terrible time remembering lyrics, but this song is probably one of the very few songs that I know word for word and I can recite it at will. I'm not going to do it here. It's probably one of the most complete sort of rock or alt rock albums of the 90s. In fact, I'd go as far as to say this is hyperbole or whatever you want to call it, but I'd say it's probably one of the best debut rock albums it pretty much ever made. Trust me, after close to 30 years now, it holds up a lot better than a lot of albums from that era or albums that are 30 years old. Go check it out if you haven't. Album number 2, Everclear's Sparkle and Fade. Everyone remembers Santa Monica. Again, all over the radio in the 90s. But the album goes so much deeper than that. Frontman Art Alexakis, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, poured everything into this album. Songs about addiction, struggle, survival. A track like Heroin Girl hits hard, emotionally and musically. It came out pretty much in the middle of the grunge explosion, so your Nirvanas and Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, everyone kind of overshadowed it. It obviously was successful, but time's probably forgotten it a little bit. But Sparkle and Fade deserves to stand alongside some of the albums that some of those bands made. It's such an honest and raw and underrated album. So please, again, go give it a listen if you haven't. Number 3, You Are My's Hourly Daily. Now, if you're not Australian, there's probably a good chance that you actually haven't heard of You Are My. But in their home country, here, Australia, they are absolute legends. And their 1996 album, Hourly Daily, is an absolute masterpiece. Obviously very successful in Australia. The Australians watching right now are going, well, we know who You Are My are. Of course you do. But the world at large, unfortunately not. It plays almost like a concept album. It's like a single day in suburban life. The lyrics are witty and observational, but also tinged with sadness and pathos. But the melodies are pure power pop. Think Jam, Kinks. In Australia, this album went to number 1, but internationally, it just barely made a ripple, which is a shame because at the time, your Britpop fans, your Oasis fans, all those people would have absolutely have loved this. And bands like Oasis were fans of You Are My. This album is one of my personal favourites. I just, again, as I said earlier on, I think it's an absolute masterpiece. For me, just a roller coaster of emotions takes me back to some really interesting times in my life. Some incredible tracks on there. The opening title track, Hourly Daily, Soldiers, If We Can't Get It Together, Please Don't Ask Me to Smile, one of my personal favourites. So please go check it out. Number 4, Pollyanna, Hello Halo. Let's stay in Australia for a minute. Pollyanna's Hello Halo from 1997. This band blended old rock, power pop, a bit of punk. They were an incredible live band. I remember seeing them at the Punters Club many, many times back in that day. Hello Halo, just such an underrated album. This band just deserved so much more success than what they got. Songs like Cinnamon Lips, Better Than Broken, Cooling Your Heels. Hello Halo was just a classic album from the 90s. The problem for Pollyanna, unfortunately, is they just never really kind of broke out of the indie rock, underground, whatever you want to call it, scene in Australia. They did sign to a major label, and they did have a modicum of success compared to most bands. But Hello Halo, this album, again, it just stands shoulder to shoulder with any release of its time, especially Australian releases. Big guitars, big choruses, just great. Just please, go give it a listen. And finally, to round out the five, going to diverge from the alt rock or grunge or whatever you want to call it that I've been talking about so far, and go to a band who were obviously very, very successful at one point, but they made one album in particular which was very controversial, I think for all the wrong reasons. So yes, I'm going to talk about a Motley Crue album, and maybe not one that you're thinking of. Remember, it's the 90s. So as a lot of you know, in 1994, Motley Crue made an album, a self-titled album, without Vince Neil. John Corabi had taken on vocals, and the music took a much darker, heavier, and I think controversially maybe a better turn. Die-hard fans at the time, a lot of them really hated it because it wasn't classic Crue. But here's the thing, the riffs were massive, the production was just top-notch, and Corabi just brought a depth and a weight and emotion to his voice that Vince Neil could never muster up. If this album had been released under any other name by any other band, it would have been an instant classic. Instead, it was dismissed as a failed experiment. Power to the Music, Hooligan's Holiday, Smoke the Sky. Jesus, like, just great songs. But unfortunately, it was immediately written off, immediately dismissed as a failed experiment. But go out and give it another shot. It's such a great album. So there you have it. 5 albums from the 90s, which I believe deserve way more credit than they got. They deserve way more attention. From a, pardon the pun, misunderstood Motley Crue record to a couple of Aussie cult classics to alt rock debuts that still hold up today. The 90s were full of hidden gems just bubbling under the surface. So anyway, what about you? What do you think is an underrated 90s classic? Drop it in the comments, and maybe I'll have a look at it for part 2. So as always, if you enjoyed this, hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment, hit the notification bells, whatever you like, and I'll see you in the next one.